Hold on when I stand by. All yours, Michelle. Michelle, you need to unmute.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Michelle Aluño, and I am the country lead for the Philippines for Childhood Education International, or CEI. One of the regional groups of CEI is the Southeast Asia and Fiji group that is being headed by Dr. Christine Chen of Singapore. Bonding Together of Childhood Educators Forum has been formed by this group to unite and gather educators of various countries to share ideas, best practices, and holistic strategies to support the ever-changing approaches in childhood education. The group is hosting a series of live discussions for which we have aptly entitled as New Skills for Life. Tonight is the third forum session for which we will be discussing about innovative practices in family and teacher collaboration. This is a vital part of this new normal period, especially since both families and teachers have to be innovative in dealing and teaching our children. Joining us tonight is our very own Professor Neti Herawati of the University of Riau in Indonesia and Ms. Charmaine Teo of ACES Singapore. Good evening to our educators who has graciously granted us this time to share their thoughts and ideas about this topic. Before we go on with our discussion proper, may I kindly ask our speakers for tonight for a short introduction and to share with our viewers what forms of self-care have you been doing during this new normal period. Let us start off perhaps with Professor Neti.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I'm Neti Herawati. I'm from Indonesia. I work at Riau University. Now I am a leader of organization of Indonesian teacher. I mean ECE teacher. I have almost 400,000 members of ECE teacher. Thank you very much, Dr. Chen and Michelle, invite me to this discussion. Hi, Charmaine. Thank you.
Hi everyone. I'm Charmaine Teo. I am from Singapore. I have been an early childhood educator for more than 12 years. I started a small preschool called Between Two Trees, and I'm currently interested in nonprofit education. I also volunteer at the ACES, Association for Early Childhood Educators Singapore, which Dr. Chen heads.
Thank you very much, Professor Neti and Ms. Charmaine, for the introduction. Now, before this pandemic has spread all throughout the world, the people in our respective countries had been living their lives the usual way that we know how. But the after effects had drastically changed the way we live our everyday lives. Most affected of whom were or are the children and their education. Going on for our first question for tonight. Can you please describe how teaching and learning has changed with children not coming to school? Maybe we could start off with Professor Neti.
Okay. My I share screen, Michelle?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, sorry. In Indonesia, since March, 30 March 2020, all schools have been closed and this closure has been extended until October 2020. So schooling were done from home. Parents were dizzy, confused, and rejected. And beside the children cry and said forcing going to school. And 75% of ECE teacher, my Himpawdi members, said they were not ready to manage the school from home. In fact, nobody ready to live with COVID-19. We must have new life skill as adaptation to living in the pandemic. So I want to share about my preschool Quantum Kid in Pekanbaru, Riau Province. When the school was closed, we immediately communicated with parents and assured them that God wants to the best for parents to educate the children. So we said not to worry because the teacher will give instruction on what to do at home with children. So like this, we give the guideline to the parents. We send to the parents simple lesson plan, and parents learn about the lesson plan. In the simple lesson plan, we write the lesson objective, lesson material they can get from house and garden, and learning procedure, and communication guide parents with children, and how the parents documented the activity. So we make the in-depth parenting, and we give parents the guideline about the COVID-19, and parent practice about the guideline. So every family different condition. So we give family based on the family condition. So we get the online way, offline, and blended, and we use home visit program too. So now in pandemic, we must have new skill. Teacher have new skill, and the parent have new skill too. Like you see this slide, so the teacher must have new skill about protocol COVID in their life, and the teacher must in the parenting to the parent, and they must online meeting, making video, making the learning package for family, and new assessment skill, and get home visit program. And the parents have new skill too, protocol COVID, and must become teacher at home. The parents must prepare loose pad, tools, and material for children. And they must have effective communication and scaffolding too. And the parents must have read a book for the children, and making child documentation and online meeting with the teacher. And the teachers make the learning guideline material for parents, like video like this.
Assalamualaikum teman-teman
Okay,
semuanya.
and
Bagaimana
we
kabarnya
make
kalian?
the guideline, we make the story for the parents. Okay, so Michelle, now the school move from school to the family. So the teacher and the parents must move on and get and have the new skill. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Professor Nettie. I think what has struck me the most with your presentation with that was how immediate the communication with the parents and the teachers had been. They had immediately been informed of the situation and the possible outcomes or possible adjustments that each is going to do or during this pandemic. So I think that is a crucial part of that process.
Yes.
Immediate communication with the parents with regards to the new process for their education. So thank you very much, Professor Nettie.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Okay, Ms. Charmaine, may I
Yes.
ask what is your take on this, please?
So I'm gonna just share my thoughts as someone who's closely related to a preschool, so as an educator, but also as a parent. So just to share my experience from that angle. In Singapore, the circuit breaker started on the 7th of April, and it went on for 7 weeks to the 1st of June. So that was, I guess, Singapore's, I mean, we called it a circuit breaker, which essentially meant that we were at home all the time. So a few things that the school did was it was very common for all the schools to do conferencing online. Everyone went online via Zoom or other Microsoft Teams or different online platforms. For the preschool that I was at, my child could meet the teachers once a week. So that was what happened. And then the parents, the teachers also sent lesson kits home. So those were all craft packages that the teachers thought of. And I think the emphasis was really also not so much on what the hard learning goals were. The emphasis was how to get through this period. So a lot of the emphasis became on social, emotional, not really just development, but also how we're coping with the so-called new normal. And then I noticed that there were a lot more emails and chats, obviously, because everyone was at home and online. There was a lot more communication that way. And what I really found was there was a lot of smaller groups that broke off. Parents were talking to one another more. Parents were also missing the teachers. Parents were lamenting and appreciating teachers more and really valuing the teachers. Obviously, because a lot of parents are both working, right? So they all had to juggle a working life, a home life, and also child caring life at home. So for the parents, it was really how to juggle all of that, and I think from the teachers' perspective and the school's perspective, it was also how do we continue our roles as teachers, even though we're physically separated. So in considering what the question is, which is how the teachers collaborated with the parents, the new normal really forced everyone, I think, to work a lot closer. And at first, I mean, just from a personal perspective, there were some stories about some parents were very, very stressed out because obviously for good reason, some were afraid of actually falling sick. Some were worried about their jobs and their livelihood, all these very existential questions that come into play while they're having to worry about whether their children are still learning and learning up to speed, So those were all different issues at the same time. And I think that the collaboration has happened. I think for some it was forced, but for others it was a very organic development. So yeah, and I noticed from Professor Nettie's slides as well, there are a lot of similarities also in the Singapore context, just the fact that we were all forced online. We had to go online if we wanted to continue being in touch. And also following lesson plans, not following lesson plans, I think that was also the struggle. So that was really how we went through the circuit breaker. And now that the children are back in school, there is still a high amount of being online. Yeah. I think we also had an earlier question, right, about self-care that we didn't manage to answer. Maybe we can talk about that later, or...
Yes, thank you for reminding me, Miss Charmaine, about that. I think this is very up, or it's a good time to put that in, because I was struck with with what you have shared, especially when you mentioned that you are putting emphasis on social and emotional well-being of the children, since this is some of the factors that are not easily talked about among the teachers, the parents, and some of the other people. But one of the most crucial and important part of this new normal setting. So I think it is very
Yeah.
good that one had been able to put emphasis on these things, because we tend to focus on the educational side of things, how
Yeah.
the kids are doing, how they are coping with the online setting. We are sidetracked by that, and we tend to forget the emotional side of things, especially with young children who are used to getting out and playing with their friends and their
Yeah.
classmates, and then
Yeah.
suddenly they're cooped up at home and they had not been able to do the usual things that they are doing. So I
Yeah.
think it's very good that this has been put into emphasis. So thank you
Yeah.
very much. Now, going
Yeah.
back to our question, I would like to ask each or both of you how you are taking care of yourself during this new normal period. What are the routines that you are doing? Can you share it with our viewers for tonight?
Yeah, for sure. Professor Nettie, would you like to go
Professor
first?
Nettie, yes, please.
Okay, I want to saw about the collaboration teacher and parents, Michelle. Okay, uh, every family has different conditions, so we serve according to their condition, online, offline, and blend it on the others. And one, I think one very important that make the happy learning, not only must get the uh, like one goal, but we must make the happy learning for children. So because the teacher, I mean the parents, never get in the parenting, so we give in the parenting. Actually, before pandemic, we do parenting too, but not in depth because the learning in the school. But because the learning moved to the home, so we give in the parenting. In the parenting is in a group. Every Monday, parents come to school with their children, but only 2 until 5 parents in one group. Teacher explain weekly plan and discussion the problem and solution with the parents. Okay, like this slide. And this is very important as the assignment letter. Teacher and parents must assign the assignment letter to uh, must get the rules. So when the parents and teacher and principal discuss indoor, and we take the children to activity outdoor. So like this slide, okay, the teacher has made a lesson plan and arranged the tool and material for play. The distance from one child to another is maintained 1 until 1.0.5 meters as recommended by the government. Children use masks like this slide. Then the teacher will read the storybook and then ask the children to play. The teacher accompany the child and provide the correct communication and give the best scaffolding. Parents observe the children play activity after the meeting finish. So if the parents involved in the playing, so we give education to parent how they implement in their home. So and after that we go to the first home visit program. Teacher interact with a child to create a classroom in his and her room. Even though children can play everywhere, in the room, the children can play, can learn. In kitchen, the children can learn too. But for me, it is important children have the place as own classroom. So the first home visit, the teacher interacts with a child to create a classroom in his or her home. After home visit, 5 days learning activity at home were led by the parents. Nah, so you see the learning activities at home. After the parents read the lesson plan, parent must discuss with children teacher message of lesson plan, because we must hear the children voice. So the children and parents prepare together book, video, and loose part and the other materials. Parents open the class or use the video with teacher mat. So if the parents, both of parents go to the work, so they can play the video, greet children. I mean the teacher greet children. Child flash and parent gives a scaffolding, and parent records the activity and child communication. So you see this the Play-Doh. The Play-Doh teacher teach the parents how make the Play-Doh and how use like leaf, stone, and the others material for the lesson for the children. Okay, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Professor Nettie. I think you have
But,
stressed a great point
sorry,
here. The
Michelle.
creation, yes,
Michelle.
yes, Professor.
Sorry, I asked my I add my explanation. I add my
Yes, please. Yes,
explanation.
please. Yes, please.
I want to share about the photo, the activity in home, in the children in activities in home. So you see that. Okay, sorry. Okay, so you see that the children is happy because the parent not forced to the children, so much happy learning. And Alif draw the corona, and he said that, so you see the children thing. Alif said that many coronavirus that attack humans, the virus is made by people from food. So you can see the children thing. Then the food explode, and he's carried away by the corona, so a woman gets corona. So you see I mean the picture and the other picture. So many activity can we do the at home like this. Okay, this is okay. So you see. He said that he make the picture with the mom, and he used the stone, leaf, and the others materials, and okay this okay, and after the activity play finish, so the parent document the activity like this. So the mother asks the children, so what do you done? So the children talk and said what she Sidang. Okay. Okay, after that, the documentation, so the parent documentation, based on the parent documentation, teacher assess the documentation and make the assessment for the parents. So my teacher said that if we give the assessment every day, so the parents happy and activity more before. So we must give the assessment every day to the parents. Okay, Michelle, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Nettie. You have mentioned several great points in this presentation. The first that struck me is that one great point is the creation of a classroom or setting up an ambience conducive for learning, which is a vital point in home learning so that the children would be able to shift from home life to studying mode when they are at home. Another great point that you have mentioned here is learning in a relaxed environment should be a crucial part in this new home study period, especially when you have mentioned that everyday assessment is a must for the parents. I think this is very good, or it's a very nice way of assessing the current standing of the learnings of the children. At least the parents would be able to be hands-on with this activity, and they themselves would be able to assess the progress of their respective children. So thank you very much for that, Professor Nettie. Very
Yeah.
good points. I think everyone would be able to learn a lot from what you have shared. Now, going back to our previous question before we proceed with the second question for Ms. Charmaine. Ms. Charmaine, would you like to share with us what forms of self-care have you been doing during this new normal period?
Yeah. Well, I guess I mean, just speaking also very personally, when there was the circuit breaker, um, essentially we couldn't go out, right? And we couldn't work and we couldn't do what we were used to doing. And everything that we've taken for granted, right? We can't go out and meet people. We don't have that, that whole schedule of every day going to somewhere to work or to do what we needed to do. So I think one key thing that I have been doing is I've been moving a lot more. I've been finding more reason to exercise, to go for walks. The other thing also is I found myself being online a lot. So I really had to look at controlling Zoom time or any sort of media, just really thinking about switching off, right? And I think another thing was also really being mindful about spending one-on-one time with my children and my husband. From being concerned with a school or setting up schools or being concerned about curriculum and my everyday job, it actually went to thinking about 3 meals for my children every day, and as they're coming now. My son is just here, but yeah, so that's the reality. And I think self-care was really about maintaining carving out some time just to have quiet time. Yeah, you have to go. Yeah, so that's it for self-care.
Thank you, Ms. Charmaine. I guess every working mother who is working at home can relate to what you have said, especially with the meal preparation. You are in the middle of a meeting and then you have to prepare your lunch or dinner for the family, but you have to attend to this work first also. So you are
Yes.
torn. Most of the time, you are torn with what we have to do. So I
Yeah.
guess you have stressed a great point here, switching off with the use of social media for you to be able to relax. I guess sometimes we tend to focus on these things as a form of relaxation, but in the end, it totally drains us in the process. So switching off is a very good idea of self-care. Thank you for sharing that. And the one-on-one time with the family or being mindful about it, that is also a great point. So thank you. And I guess everybody would be able to relate with what we have shared or what you have shared with them, especially seeing your beautiful son now. I think this is one of the usual things that we are dealing with, especially in our new work from home setup. So with that, for our second question, Ms. Charmaine, before we move on to that, I would like to ask, how has it contributed to collaborative practices? Now, that this could be between the parents and the teachers, or the parents at home, or with other educators. Can you share something about this, Charmaine?
I think fundamentally, you know, the before COVID, it's like life before COVID and life after COVID is very different in relation to how the children are, right? It's essentially they're now not just physically isolated, but they have to wear a mask, right? So just to talk about that, I mean, having an adult be like that all day is a very powerful thing, because now children have to look at expressions like that and decipher that, you know. So there was a lot of conversation about, when we go back to school, how will we teach, how will teachers teach when you're constantly like this and you can't articulate, you can't share your experiences, your emotions. And children have to constantly, I mean, it's not easy to just constantly look at the eyes, right? So I think the children have had to really adjust to that. You know, I don't know. Maybe this is a question three thing, but I mean, when you're asking me about this, that's the first thing that I think about. Um, and also, what are the practical effects? I mean, when we collaborate and when we plan for curriculum now, I mean, when I'm talking to my teachers, I'm interested to find out how they actually hold their classes. How do they execute what their lesson plans are? You know, I can actually share a quick image. I feel very inspired to share at least one image, because Professor Nettie has so many images, beautiful images to look at. But this is, can you see this? So this is between two trees, right? And I mean, this is online, so you can see it on Instagram. But this was for Racial Harmony Day, and if you just look at the photograph now, it's Racial Harmony Day, so you've got children in ethnic wear, and this girl was wearing an outfit, and they're looking at different prints from different parts of the world that other children have brought in. And but one thing that's really stuck is that everyone has masks on, you know, and on top of that, some have a face shield on, and the groups are smaller. So we're actually very separated in that way from one another compared to what we used to. But life goes on, right? I mean, we still adjust, we still execute the classes, there is still learning, it's still possible. You know, it's very rich. So I think that that's really what I'm trying to get at. To answer your second question, the collaborations go on and they are as rich, but physically you can see what's happening. You know, there are lesser people in a group and they all have masks on, quite simply put. Yeah, and how do we live with that? I think that is what drives our curriculum planning now, and drives teaching practice, and also group control. You know, so yeah, that's that. And I think that's another thing. I mean, I can also show you another picture. The children have been making things as normal. The work continues. They're making craft here they're making nasi lemak as part of Racial Harmony Day. But what I'm trying to say is that the learning continues, the work continues, the good work continues, you know, and everyone is really, and the children are just doing what they do best, right? They're exposed, they are stimulated by new information, they take it in, and then they make new things, you know, and the teachers do what they do as well. So I think good learning is happening, meaningful learning is happening in spite of COVID, you know. Yeah, that's my share.
Thank you, Charmaine. I guess you have mentioned here a very important aspect that is overlooked, the impediment of the wearing face masks, face shields, and how it separates the students from the teachers. not technically physically because they are with each other, but the barriers that it is posing towards the student and the teacher or the parent that they are facing with. So I think it's very good that you have mentioned it, to put into action or to put into emphasis how we could address this possibly. Perhaps I've seen in some postings in the social media that some teachers had put barriers in the tables of their students in the form of school buses as windshields, just to make it a bit fun or a bit easier for the children to take in, especially if they have to talk with each other. It's especially hard to talk wearing face masks, as you have said,
Yes,
which is
yes,
true. Especially if
yes.
you are the teacher and you're going to teach your lesson for the day, some of the children, they are distracted, and it would be very hard for them to listen to the teacher with a muffled sound because of the face mask.
Yeah.
So that is a great point that you have
I saw
mentioned,
that as well. I've seen on social media some children are separated, and then some very creative ideas, right? They make buses
Yes.
and everyone's got their own window. I think that's fantastic. But I mean, I would also be very interested to know long term what are the effects, long term effects
Yes.
of children who are not able to share food, are not able to share just touch, not being able to touch each other, not, just that kind of thing that we really rely on for human to human contact, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, to be connected, I think that's going to be quite interesting to study. But, for now, this is what it is, right?
Yes, and as you have mentioned earlier, simple things that we usually take for granted before the pandemic has become a luxury these days, especially like going to the grocery to do some shopping. It is
Yes.
something that we take
Yes.
for granted for several years, but for now to be able to go out, to see some familiar faces and to do some errands that we have to
Yes.
do, which we could immediately do if this has not happened, I think we had been able to be more appreciative, and the time that we have been able to spend with our family has been, I hope it has been worthwhile. I guess one
Yeah.
of the inputs of the Professor Nettie had been the assessment, and with that assessment they had been able to talk with each other more, when before the pandemic they had only been able to talk about or with each other before and after school or work, and now they are with each other 24/7. So, and also, one of the great points that I have mentioned or that I have noticed in your presentations for the both of you is the use of some things that can be found at home as a tool or as a learning tool, like the stones that you have shown, Professor Nettie, and the leaves, banana leaves that Ms. Charmaine has shown. So these are things that can be found at home, easily readily available, and you do not have to spend extra money for this, and yet these can be crucial learning tools for the children. The idea is in how we could be adaptive and how we can be creative in integrating this with the lesson of the students. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, before we move on, or can we move on for our next question? In connection to all of this, what have you noticed about children's, parents, and teachers' responses? So, Professor Neddy, can you give your point of view about this, please?
Thank you,
Yes, you have
Miss.
mentioned. Yes, thank you.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Michelle. Face-to-face learning in school remains what children, parents, and teacher most want. But with this school from home, parents and children as well as teacher are happier and feel the benefit. So even though not face-to-face with the teacher, but the children face-to-face via Zoom meeting or video call in WhatsApp. So I have video of positive opinion and testimonial of children, parents, and teacher with this program. Pandemic must not prevent us from educating our children, because now when the children grow up and the brain is developing, so no, no, we can. Pandemic must not prevent us from educating our children. There is always a way if we try. After all, this is our chance to massively enchain parents to become teachers at home. So, Michelle, now in pandemic, so the school at more and more. Before pandemic, in Indonesia only have 250,000 preschool. But see now, in pandemic, million, we have million school from the family, from the home. So I think God give us the best learning. After the pandemic is over, we will continue this good practice. Parents continue learning at home because for the yearly childhood, I mean for our children, 1 second is important to connecting the neuron, and every place is the school, and every adult, not only a teacher, but parents is a teacher. So no excuse for us not educating our children in pandemic. Thank you very much.
Very well said, Professor Nettie. I think it is very nice to hear about the positive response coming from the parents and the teachers, as mentioned by Professor Nettie earlier. Because as we all know, there are several complaints from the parents, especially those with the younger children, how hard it is to set up a home learning ambience at home, and especially to teach the younger children. But I think I would like to stress one point that Professor Nettie has mentioned. Pandemic must not imprison us. I think this is a very good point, and that what every one of us should always remember. And also one point that you have mentioned, when before we had several preschools in your country, in our respective countries, when now we have millions set up in
Millions.
our own
Yes.
respective homes. So I
Yes,
think that is
Michelle.
very
Michelle, and
yes.
the parents said that before pandemic we don't know like this about about the children. So the parents are surprised now
Yes.
because before they don't know, as they don't access, and so they don't appreciate like this. But we have many problem. Is I think is normally. Okay, thank you.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much, Professor Nettie. I hope we had been able to encourage the parents or the teachers that are listening with us tonight with your wise words. Okay, going back to the same question, may we ask Miss Charmaine, what is your take on this?
So just looking at how children have, I mean, just speaking for the children first, what I've noticed, um, I think it was a great relief to go back to school. A lot of children miss the routine and the ability to see their friends and their teachers. And I mean, I also shared this earlier when we were preparing for this chat that it's amazing how flexible and how adaptable children are, because even though COVID has become like part of our everyday vocabulary, the children have just kind of taken it on, right? They put on their masks and off they go to school, and that's become their normal, right? So, I mean, I think for the children, as they really do what they do best, right? Which is to go to school happy and be with their friends and their teachers and learn new things, right? And have new experiences. For the parents, what I've noticed, I mean, has been mixed. I mean, I've seen a real range of parents responding to COVID and how the changes have happened. I mean, obviously, there have been parents who have been very tense and very upset and stressed out. And then you've also got very happy and grateful parents, parents who are very, very appreciative of their teachers, are very appreciative of a school, very appreciative also to, like what Professor Neti said, to be part of their children's learning journey, you know, and to find out more about their children, to find out more about how their children learn, what their children are interested in. You know, I think all those things kind of build a deepening relationship, right? So I think that element of school being able to lend a voice to the home life is also something quite crucial, and it's a surprise side effect of having the pandemic, going through the lockdown, right? From the teacher's perspective, I mean, I've noticed that some teachers really have just run with the ball, you know. A lot of them are working a lot harder, you know, where social media and technology access wasn't automatic or easy. Some of them have really taken on the challenge of, you know, going onto Zoom, going onto whichever platform, and actually interacting with children, being proactive, you know. And I think also there were some teachers who don't necessarily have that internet access, you know, and being able to be connected and to just really be gung-ho about it. I think those teachers really need to be applauded. Another thing also that came up was initially there was some feedback about teachers not being presentable enough and not having that host show voice. You know, I think that is a real struggle. It's a real struggle now of everyone being Zoom ready, you know, and also there's also a little bit of an entertainment aspect, you know, because if you don't have that face-to-face, then you are kind of, I think some parents expect there to be some sort of entertainment. I think that's something that we have to figure out, you know, and especially because technology is a great advancer, but it can also be an impediment because we're so used to the face-to-face and the tactile contact, you know. So I think it's definitely a moving dynamic, evolving situation, right? So yeah, those are what I've noticed from the three angles. Maybe I can also talk about the school, the administration. I think some, you know, especially for different kinds of administrators, school administrators, and different kind of preschools and schools, right? Whether you're a public preschool or a private, for-profit, non-profit, you know, everyone has had to kind of scramble to stay relevant and to stay connected and in touch. So for a lot of administrators, it's also been about finding what the most effective and efficient communication channel is, you know. And a lot of people have loved Zoom because of the ability for lots of people to be on there at the same time, and it's reliable, right? But there are also different kinds of technology that teachers and administrators are actively finding out now. So that's also something that's evolving. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Charmaine. I guess the one important part that you have mentioned is having a routine for the children, which is especially important for growing children. Losing this routine, that they have to go to school at a certain period of time, and then they have to stay at class during that time, and then going back at home and having this usual routine, and losing that during this pandemic has affected all of the children, I guess, wherever you may be. So but I think you have mentioned here a great point about children, which we often took for granted because we are focusing with the teachers and the parents and how they are delivering the lessons or the schedules that they have for their children. But a great point that you have mentioned is that children are flexible and adaptable, and we have seen how resilient they are during these times. So they had been able to adapt to this new setting. I think most of them had been able to adjust quite easily than the adults like us, because we are used to going out doing these usual things. But I think they had been able to ingest all of this at once, and then they had been able to adapt their likes, their dislikes, or their routines for their at home settings. So I think that we tend to forget how resilient, how strong, how adaptable they are. And I guess it is good that we should be able to complement them in their everyday activities at home, especially since they are doing a lot of work themselves, especially for the much older children. I have two teenage boys, and they are basically doing everything on by themselves. Of course, they have the skills to do it, but I think they have matured more in a sense during these times, because they are aware that their mother has something to do, and then they have to attend to their classes. And then sometimes what amazes me is that they tend to be more empathetic about things, because they see that somebody's working, they have to look at the other things that is needed at home, and they are acting on it, and they are taking initiative to do some work about that. So I think the children are some of one of our heroes also during these times. Of course, aside from the teachers and the parents, actually this is the very theme of our topic for tonight. This is a collaboration between the children, or among the children, the parents, and the teacher. One cannot work without the other. Everybody has to work together to form, or to be able to derive at the progress that we are all looking in. Also, you have mentioned that education has been a great equalizer, but I think one of the setbacks that we are facing right now is, since most of the lessons are on a digital mode, digital inequality has also widened the gap between the students that are capable of having this, or having this online access, and those students that do not have any digital access to learning materials. So I think it was very good that our respective Department of Education had been able to adapt the learning modalities that best suits each region or each country. So in our case here in the Philippines, our teacher, our public school teachers are delivering printed materials, just like what is or what had happened in Singapore, as you have mentioned, during the April to June period, wherein learning kits had been delivered to the children or the houses of the children. For young children that are not quite adapted yet with online use of things, it is very good to be having that learning material on hand, from which they could draw, color, or do their assignments. So I think you both of you have mentioned quite great points for this topic for tonight. So both of our speakers presented ways in which we could ease our way.
Michelle, excuse me, Michelle.
Yes, Miss
I
Nettie,
think
Professor Nettie.
the one question is, I think, the good question. Some parents want to send children back to school because they have to work. Any suggestion? Yeah. Okay. I want to say that child safety is more important. There is no point in trying to educate the children if they don't survive. I mean that if we want to the children educate, but at the same time the children not safe, I think is not useful. So if the parents go to the work, I think the school from whom can do. I mean, before the parents go to the work, the parents prepare material, tools, and book, and maybe assistant. I mean, the household assistant can help to accompany, because the PSS said that the children can, I mean, the children can play themselves and can learn himself without adult. So after the parents go back from the work, and the parents communicate about what have you done in the day, like this, Michelle.
Mm.
Thank you, Chen. Your question, I think, is the important question.
Yes, thank you for pointing out this question, Professor Nettie. I think this is one problem that everybody's facing, especially those with the young children at homes. How the parents would be able to teach or give them quality education if they have to work and they have all the other responsibilities on top of that. But I think you have mentioned a very good point here. One could prepare the materials for the children if they would not be able to access those or learn on their own. At least they would be able to browse through it. Then perhaps when their parents come home at night, they would be able to discuss it with their parents or whoever might be staying with them. So thank you for sharing that, Professor Nettie.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Charmaine, would you like to add anything to that?
I'm seeing that it's a question from is it the question from Facebook Live that some
Yes,
parents want to
yes,
send
from
children back to
Facebook
school
Live.
because they have to work.
Yes.
I mean, just to share, I mean, how it was for Singapore, schools had to remain open for children of frontliners. So for parents who really had to still go to work during the circuit breaker, um, the children could go to school. So
Okay.
that was what happened. But yeah, I totally agree with what Professor Nettie said about creating that learning environment at home, But I mean, in relation to parents who really have no care resources, and they have to have their children in school, I think all around the world, the schools have had to remain open, right? That has been the result.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one of the greatest problems that we have is for those families whose parents are not that literate and would not be able to guide their children. So I think we ourselves would have to think of ways on how we could extend our help in our own little ways for these families, because this is one of the glaring factors that, or one of the problems that we have to address. This is not a problem of just one country. I think every part of the world has some families that would not be able to teach their children, especially our indigenous peoples, tribes, those that even have no COVID cases are affected by this because they have to follow the regulations or the laws of their respective countries, and they cannot do anything about it. So one group that we had been working with, this is an IP group in Mindoro in the Philippines. The
Yes,
school has to shut down
yes,
because the tribal parents would not be able to teach their children. These are children from kinder to grade 4. So the school decided to shut down their school for this school year because the children would not be able to be guided by their parents. So it's a sad fact that we have to face. And I think as we go along with this period, we would be able, and I hope we would be able to come up with the ideas or ways on how we could address these pressing issues.
yes, Michelle. The last statement for me is that no excuse for us not educating our children. However, in a situation, in condition, we must educate the children. No excuse for stop educating,
Yes.
because the children now is for the future our country. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Professor Nettie. Actually, that was why we had come up with this forum, this new skills for life. I mean,
Yes,
education and learning is not merely focused only on the academic side. Children can learn in a multitude of ways. This can be the holistic, the spiritual, the emotional, and the psychosocial well-being of the children. These are all forms of learning that I think we have to temporarily shift to, or since we would not be able to deal with the usual form of learnings. So I guess the idea is in how we can be adaptive with this new normal period. Now, any last thoughts from our speakers, Charmaine or Professor Nettie, before I wrap up our forum for tonight?
I'd just like to add, I think it's extremely moving that we are all in different places, but we kind of are on the same stream
Yes.
of wanting to do good work with children, right? So
Yes.
thank you so much for moderating this, and thank you, Professor Nettie, as well,
Yes,
for
thank you
sharing
very
your
much.
stories. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a pleasure.
Yes,
Thank you
thank you
so
very
much.
much. Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you very much, Carmen. And
Yeah, thanks.
the last statement of me is that I love and educate the children, and the children is our best priority. So please think the children is our best priority.
Yes. So both of our speakers had presented ways in which we could ease our way into this new normal period. Never easy, but something that we all have to adjust to. These times of great adjustments for everybody. The key here is in how well we adapt and rise to the occasion, and to hopefully be able to share it with others, what we have learned along the way. On that note, I would like to thank our speakers for tonight and all those who have joined us in watching tonight's forum. Thank you, everyone, and a blessed evening to all. Thank you, Ms. Charmaine, and thank you, Professor Neddy, for sharing your thoughts and ideas about this topic. We are very
Yes, thank you,
blessed to
Chair.
have you here with us
Thank you,
tonight
Chair,
and to
too.
be able to share your thoughts and ideas with everyone. We are blessed that you had been able to share a specific period of time with all our viewers for tonight. And hopefully, we would be taking home with each and every one of us a piece of learning that we could implement in our own respective homes and be able to hopefully share it with others. So, thank you, everyone. And again, blessed evening to every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.